Beginner's instruments have always been something that manufacturers have offered in abundance. There always seems to be a want for people to be able to learn a new skill and be able to express themselves through music. But children have always had a difficult time picking up instruments designed for grown adults, particularly brass instruments, which tend to be big, loud, and heavy. A product that's come out in recent years that aims to rectify this problem is this: the Nuvo jHorn. This came out back in 2020 and I saw a number of YouTube channels helping to promote it, and it seemed quite interesting to me. Although this video is meant to be an in-depth review of this instrument, I can assure you that I am not sponsored by the company that's making this thing. So if you've seen this peculiar object floating around and you're wondering if it would be a good fit for you, then look no further, as today I will attempt to decide for you. So first things first, Nuvo is a company hailing from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which focuses on creating plastic instruments for young children to learn with. They've previously created a line of woodwind instruments based on things like the clarinet and the saxophone, and the jHorn was created as their attempt at a brass instrument. The jHorn certainly has a unique design philosophy. It kind of looks like an alto horn if it had a digestive system. The whole instrument is made of this nice matte plastic, except for this glossier coating on the lead pipe and the inside of the bell. It's available in a few different accent colors on white, but I got the black version, because I don't want none of those little baby colors on my big grown-up adult instrument. I'd rather have a sophisticated and mature color, like black. Aside from this plastic, the instrument features a few parts made of this weird rubbery silicone, notably on what's pretending to be the valve caps and on the water key. I could easily see this rubber accumulating loads of dust and filth, and it feels like it could erode away after some time, especially on the water key, as it's really just a sliver of rubber stretched over a hole in the tubing. I get they wanted a water key that meshed well with the plastic design and wouldn't be damaged easily, but I don't know. The P-Bone seems to have a pretty good thing going with its water key. Plus, these slides are so small that you can very easily empty them just by pulling them out, which is something they've acknowledged since this is the only water key on the instrument. So, yeah, I don't get the vision here. Aside from the weird spit valve, the jHorn comes equipped with a number of other pretty neat features, namely the valves. I'm sure you've seen it at all the reviews and the marketing materials. The jHorn features upright rotary valves that you can access by simply removing this faceplate here. They're designed to be easily cleaned and to not require any valve oil, which has its upsides and downsides. Yes, these valves are easy to clean and maintain, but they are so loud, and they also don't articulate particularly well either. I've never had them stick or randomly get slower, which means they are consistent, but they're consistently crap, if that makes sense. They say you shouldn't use valve oil with these because they're made of plastic, and I honestly don't think that valve oil would even help very much since the problem goes beyond the ability of the valves to actuate. It's kinda hard to describe, really. There's just this sort of awkward crunchiness with these things that gets way worse with how loud they are. I think a bit more rubber underneath the valve caps could have gone a long way when they were designing this instrument. You just don't get the same reassuring feeling that you do with real metal valves. They kind of feel like they're gonna break, even though the build quality is good enough that you know that they won't break. I wouldn't trust these valves with my life, that's all I'm saying. The jHorn comes with this pretty nice little hard case. It features a microscopic pocket that you can just barely fit the mouthpiece and spare tubes into, and the instrument perfectly slides into the main compartment. It's got some backpack straps in case you want to use it as a fashion accessory, and it's big enough for you to fit 13 cans of seltzer water into, or alternatively 3 college textbooks. Another major advertised feature of the jHorn is this extra set of tuning slides that allows you to change the instrument from the key of B flat into the key of C. Now, in theory, this is a pretty neat feature that you don't really see too often in a lot of instruments. However, I don't really like how they chose C of all keys to be the alternative. Nuvo's website says that the C tubing lets it blend in with its WindStars program, which is basically just all of its products playing together in a band for schools to teach little kids how to play music, and I guess all of their other instruments are in the key of C. And that's fine enough, but for brass players in particular, C isn't really a relevant key. Unless for some reason you want your offspring to specifically play the C trumpet when they grow up, learning to play an instrument in this key won't really be applicable to the wider world of brass. I think it would have been a much better choice if the extra slides let you put the instrument into the key of F or E flat, since a lot more common brass instruments use those keys. The last big gimmick of the jHorn is its unique modular mouthpiece. Basically, it comes with a few silicone cups that mimic the sizes of different sorts of mouthpieces found on brass instruments, and you can easily switch them out of the plastic base. I actually think that this is a really good feature. Back when I started playing brass instruments in the 6th grade, I really would have liked to try out some different mouthpiece sizes, so giving kids the freedom to pick their favorite mouthpiece size is a great way to set them off for their musical endeavors. Aside from the educational value, the alto horn one sounds alright, the trombone one only sounds good on low notes, and the trumpet one just sounds bad. I don't know if it's just my chop muscles not being accustomed to tiny mouthpieces, or if it's the weirdly small bore size that this mouthpiece cup has, but I don't know. The trumpet one does not spark joy. So all that aside, how does the jHorn sound? Well, not that great. It kind of sounds like a cross between a French horn and maybe a baritone, but it has such a plasticky tone to it that's difficult to ignore. From the moment you first see this instrument, you'll notice that all of its tubing is super tightly wound up. This blocks up the airflow as you play and causes it to feel incredibly stuffy and somewhat unresponsive. Similar to what I said about the plastic euphonium, it kinda takes a lot of airflow to get any decent sound out of this. Since the air doesn't have a smooth, straight path from the mouthpiece to the bell, it all gets blocked up and you have to exert a lot of force to get any sort of enjoyable tone. As you could probably guess, the intonation on this instrument is not very good. Some notes are completely out of tune, and there's a lot of wiggle room as to how much your embouchure affects how in tune your note is. This makes it so that if you want to play in tune, you'll need to be super conscious about what note you're playing and how you'll need to correct it with your lip muscles. This instrument certainly sounds better in the higher ranges. Even though it has the same length of tubing as a euphonium or a baritone, it's so thin and coiled up that it really wants to play higher. If you want to play one of these and not hate it, I'd recommend getting a metal mouthpiece of a relatively small size. The one it comes with is made of silicone and plastic, which really doesn't have the same resonance that you get with metal or even solid plastic. I've heard alto horn and trumpet mouthpieces fit perfectly, and I assume that's the size of the stock one that the instrument comes with. There's a French horn player on YouTube who manages to make this thing sound really good, and he uses a French horn mouthpiece, so I'd recommend looking into one of those 3 options. So with all this in consideration, would I recommend the jHorn to a general audience? Well, not really. Everything about this instrument is designed with kids in mind. It's small, it's soft to the touch, it's made of durable quality materials, and it's super light. Like seriously, the weight of this thing makes it so easy to just pick up and mess around with. But it's all held back by the playing experience. It really is just that stuffy and weak sounding. I mean, if I struggle to get a good sounding note out of this thing, then how is a 6-year-old supposed to enjoy playing this every day at school? I think the real value in this thing comes from its fundamental basic purpose, which is to teach tiny little kids the basics of playing brass instruments. Things like the modular mouthpiece and the simple to maintain valves would do a fantastic job of teaching kids how brass instruments work, but not too much else. I couldn't see this thing working to develop a child's skills for any longer than like a year, and past that point they should be given a real brass instrument. But aside from the jHorn's educational value, there's certainly something to be said about the novelty value in something like this. If you're anything like me and you have a rather unhealthy obsession with strange musical instruments, Especially of the brass variety, I could certainly see this being a worthy investment for you just to fiddle around with or to get a unique sound for a personal project. Just don't expect any serious performance out of it. So for about $140, I could see this being a worthwhile buy for either a really little kid who's somewhat interested in brass instruments, or a 6'3" adult man who's extremely interested in brass instruments. Anybody else would probably be better off with a real brass instrument of a similar form factor. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it's informed you a little bit, and if not, then maybe you liked hearing my voice blabbing on for several minutes. I've made a few other review-style videos like this, so check those out if you're interested in more brass instruments. Otherwise, have a nice day.